Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast producing badass.
And I'm John Thomas. If it's haunted, cursed, or just plain weird, I'm into it. From paranormal encounters to horror movie deep dives, urban legends, count me in.
I'm BJ Sewura, an aspiring paranormal musician who plays live for the dead because the living just doesn't want to hear me.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and metapals? In today's episode, we'll be discussing quantum theory, spirituality, and the paranormal. How does quantum theory help explain and eventually prove the paranormal? Joining us in this conversation, a special returning guest, author Callea Sherrill. Welcome back, Callea.
Thank you, guys. It has been way too long since I've been on here with you.
I agree.
Yes, we are well overdue for having you on.
It's been so long that I've never even met BJ before. So, yeah, it's been a while.
Well, it's an exciting conversation. And BJ used to be a listener, so he's heard your episodes.
Yes.
Awesome.
But never actually got to meet you, so it's good to meet you finally.
Awesome.
This is exciting. Yeah, and I know the past few seasons we wanted to have you on, but I think it always coincided with your amazing trips. Now, you have been frequenting Italy, right?
Yeah. I just got back from a trip there. I was there for a month. It's the city of my soul, Florence, Italy, and had a really great time. It's amazing.
Now, with your travels, do you, especially somewhere like that, historical, do you experience the paranormal quite frequently, or how do you travel with the gifts that you have?
It's funny. I was actually just thinking about that on this trip because when you stay in Florence, you regularly stay in 14th, 15th century buildings, right? I have never had a paranormal experience in Italy.
Really?
Is that bizarre or what? I've never even felt the tingles. The tingles are what I get when there's like an energy in the room or whatever. I have never felt anything in Florence. It's bizarre.
Do you think maybe that has to do with your like deeper connection to it in a different way that kind of shields you a bit or from that kind of invasive energy because you're so connected with Italy?
Possibly, because there's definitely a connection with Florence. That I feel. I don't feel spirits, I don't feel ghosts, but I absolutely 100% feel a connection to the city, and it feels like a past life experience. So I never really thought about it before that it could be just because of that connection that I'm actually experiencing it from that point of view rather than who I am now.
Yeah, I also kind of wonder if it's because like the space of serenity for you, it almost grounds you, right? You're so grounded that you're not receiving the, I don't want to say superficial, but that external layer that we experience at times.
Yeah, that's true. I am extremely grounded when I'm in Italy. I don't know. I think you're right. Now that I think about it, I think you're right.
You said you have a past life connection to it. Do you know more about that, or it's just this intuitive knowing that this is a past life connection?
It's just an intuitive knowing. Um, I have, I know that it has something to do with the Medici, which is the family that was in banking and then into politics and are responsible for turning Florence into the Renaissance capital of the world. And I know it has something to do with them because whenever I see the Medici symbols, which are all over Florence, it just fills me with this weird sense of pride as if it belongs to me. So I don't know what the connection is, but it has something to do with that.
Do you feel like deja vu there too at all? Is that is that even a sign of like past lives?
I think it is possibly a sign of past lives. I don't know that I've ever had a deja vu. It's just more of a sense of absolute and complete belonging. So it's not like, oh, I think I've experienced this before. It's just, I belong here. And it's kind of a relief because I never feel that here at home in the United States. I always feel like um, I'm too woo woo for the cowboy side of things, and I'm too cowboy for the woo woo side of things, and I never quite fit in. But when I'm in Florence, man, it's where I belong. So,
Which is funny because I feel like a lot of people who aren't woo woo view the woo woo as like a Wild West kind of thing.
right. See, I think it makes perfect sense.
Just this unknown frontier. It's like,
Right?
yeah.
Well, and I mean, horses are the most spiritual creatures that you'll ever meet. And so, I don't get it either, Ashley.
Now, we talked to you about coming on. I was very excited to see your name pop up on the schedule. That I know John was excited.
Mhm.
But you had mentioned talking about quantum theory and how it relates to the paranormal. And I think that's exciting because I know we oftentimes talk about how the paranormal is hard science. It just hasn't been taken there yet. So, very curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the work that's being done in quantum physics, quantum mechanics, they're literally proving the things that we experience on a regular basis. Um, but the thing is that when you get down to the subatomic level, it can't be measured. It can't be quantified the way that we're trying to do it by using scientific methods for typical atomic type experiences, right? And so I think that we need to be looking past using EMF detectors and trying to explain why the batteries go dead in equipment, um, trying to catch them on camera, all of these things that belong to our physical world. I truly believe that the spirits are actually residing just outside of what most of us can see or experience. And then I think that there are some of us who are able to open our minds just a little bit more, that we're able to see outside of the realm that most people see. So, yeah, I think that that has a lot to do with um, not proving the existence of the paranormal, just making people think about it more. I don't think you can prove it.
Maybe not in the way that we consider proof, right? Like the see, touch, feel. I think when we talk about proving something, we've very much are thinking of it as improve it, like it's a 3D physical entity. And it's like, well, it's not clearly. So
Mhm.
proving it in the 3D world is definitely a trickier thing. But if we start really, like you said, expanding our minds and thinking of it beyond that, it's a 4D, 5D beyond realm, then maybe what that proof is something we haven't even really conceptualized yet because we're still thinking in the 3D.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I have a note on my phone that I would like to read that I learned not too long ago, and I found it really interesting. It was after we talked about what we were going to talk about here, and I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Okay, so this came from an actual physicist, from a scientist. 70% of the universe is made up of dark energy, and we have no idea what dark energy is. It's not made of atoms. 27% of the universe is dark matter, which is invisible and, ironically, only hypothetical kind of sounds like ghosts, doesn't it? Only 3% of the universe is atomic or made up of atoms. And then the visible universe, that part that we as humans are capable of observing and understanding, is only 0.01% of the entire universe. The rest is either unknown to us or unknowable. Now, what if we could expand our consciousness, like we were talking about, in order to discover more of that unknown, to step outside those boundaries that we seem to have made for ourselves, because our boundaries are self-imposed and self-created. We believe we're only supposed to see time in a linear manner, and so we see time in a linear manner. But if you play with time, you realize that you can expand it, you can contract it, you can warp it, just like Star Trek. It's fascinating. But if you are only going off of what you believe is supposed to be possible based on Newtonian physics, I think we're missing out on a whole realm of what we could do with the paranormal outside of that.
We're missing out on 99.9% of the rest of the universe.
99.99% of the rest of the universe. I mean, that's a lot that we're not experiencing. And I think if we could just kind of open our minds, I know that, when I start reading about quantum physics, it sometimes gets so overwhelming, and so many people say, well, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Neither do I. But if you, instead of trying to understand it, if you look through it, I kind of think of it as like those magic eye posters that if you look through them, all of a sudden the image jumps out at you. If you're reading about quantum physics and you're trying to look through the experience, all of a sudden it doesn't make any more sense, but it becomes clear that it's okay that it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
This is the kind of stuff my brain feeds on at like 3 a.m. So I'm loving that we're doing this at 6 p.m.
Right.
You'll still be
That way
awake
you don't
at
have to
3
stay
a.m.
awake. Yeah.
I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. going, aha, I don't get it.
The way I think about it is I connect it with near-death experiences. I've been doing a lot of just, again, like Ashley was saying, YouTube stuff, just watching stuff late at night and connecting that way with kind of looking at people's stories and how they talk about the afterlife and, how it's a different experience altogether. And that's one way, to connect to that idea that's maybe outside, like outside of the realm of thinking of what we know, but also connecting to the spiritual world in a way that can help us understand, right? So if we don't know, then we ask the spirit guides and whoever that can help us understand. Because I feel like, for me, it's I mean, for most people, who knows? Like, there's so much to it. But if you can just be guided, maybe that's kind of where I like to find my information.
I agree. Being guided definitely helps. And that feeling like when you're on the right track, when you're studying something like near-death experiences, and all of a sudden that you've hit on something and you get the tingles up your arm and you realize that you have just experienced a truth that's beyond what you have ever experienced before. And so I think asking to be guided it's a great way, whether it's from your ancestors, whether it's from higher being, whether it's from your higher self, and maybe they're just all the same thing because we're all interconnected, right?
What I find interesting is you said it perfectly. We see time as this like linear thing, and it's just not. And I find it interesting that, a lot of people think in order to move forward, that's this, we're going forward or backward, we're on that linear plane, that we have to do more or think more or see more. And for me, I feel like we almost have to, in linear thinking, go backwards a bit, because there was a time when we as humanity, in the tribes, in the different pockets of civilization, we're already on that level of understanding that time is not linear. Time is circular, time folds on itself. And we were already thinking these grand notions of where the spiritual plane is, and that there isn't like a hard division, that it's around us, it's inside of us, and that there is this constant when it comes to time that's not geometric, it just is. And maybe it isn't. Maybe there is no time. Now I'm getting weirder. But yeah, I just think at one point we understood that. And I do feel that our survival instincts got in the way a bit, our very physical nature, our need to, the mortality, the sense of mortality kind of caused us to be more invested in the 3D. And so we really invested in technology as a society and keeping our lineage further alive through agriculture and so forth. And so we really hardened ourselves into the 3D version of this world and less into the spiritual. But with that said, similar to what you described in the composition of the universe, even as little universes ourselves, we're not just our skin. We have energy ourselves, we have spirit ourselves, we have consciousness ourselves, things that you can't really prove, right? You can't prove it, but it's there. We have the sentience that, how do you prove that in a hard science? How do you prove sentience? It's a knowing, we know we're sentient, but how do you prove it in numbers? It's
Yeah,
just
you
those
you
things that you
can't,
can't.
because
Yeah.
consciousness is, it's not something that can be measured, and so it can't be proven. And I would like to say, you said we have consciousness, we have energy. I think we are energy
We are.
and we are consciousness, and we
Yes.
just happen to be encased in this meat suit right now, which ironically limits us. Um, I do believe that once we pass on, as BJ, when you talk about doing the near death experience work, um, I do believe that once we connect to whatever you want to call it, the higher power, some people call it God, some people say heaven, um, whatever you want to call it, I call it the universe. But when you connect to that, you are literally now unlimited, and so I often laugh about, when we talk about, when we go out ghost hunting and we talk about how the spirits are draining our batteries because they need that energy. They're kind of low energy, and in order to be able to come through and speak with us, they've got to drain our batteries in our equipment, right? We've all said that at one time or another. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, once we are connected to the ultimate out there in the universe, I really don't think we need human energy to be able to come through. I think we have unlimited possibilities. Okay. So, what I believe with that is that we're not, they're not draining our batteries because they need energy from us. They're so powerful that they're actually short circuiting our equipment. You know, I've started thinking things in an opposite way than I used to think of it. I used to think of it in a sense of limitation, and now I think of it in unlimited possibilities.
That actually makes a lot of sense to me. So, yeah, I like the way you're thinking. You're welcome.
I think we even see it in ourselves, right? Like when we're feeling extra charged and we're static, like we're accidentally shocking people around us and we're setting off our devices. Like we see ourselves do that when our energy is high. So that makes complete sense that something, that we would consider paranormal or supernatural is short circuiting because of the energy that they're possessing.
Right. Well, and science has proven that energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? And we are all energy. We're all just made up of energy that's vibrating quickly enough to be solid so that people can see us as forms. Um, but energy can't be created or destroyed. So, what that means is that, like if you have a day where you've been really, really busy all day long, and then you get home and you're just exhausted, and you think about it's because you have left your energy all the way along during the day as you talk to different people and you have different experiences, that type of thing. Well, then, say 1 minute, John comes walking through the room that I've just been in and I've left all my energy in because I'm now exhausted and at home, sound asleep. And he walks through this room and he's like, "Oh, what is that?" Well, it's my energy. I'm a living person, right? But then we perceive that as being, oh, it must be a ghost. But I think we all do it, living and dead. I think we're not limited to haunting the Stanley Hotel or, the Myrtle's Plantation or all these famously haunted places. Energy is everywhere, and we can feel it if we just open ourselves up to it on a regular basis.
I felt something and I've never felt before. Like I don't usually feel um, too many things when I'm doing investigations, but one time I did feel something, and we were doing the human pendulum thing, and yes or no, you gotta go forward or back. And I was asking questions, and I just felt like we just talked about a rush of energy just hit me like a ton of bricks, but it was like butterflies. It was like that, but like the most positive feeling I've ever felt, and it made me laugh. I was just like chuckling, like I was like, oh my god, like what is going on? And then in the background, everybody you would hear like knocking sounds. So and it would just have it happen like right after the knocking sounds would happen right after it would hit me, and it hit me like two or three times during it. And I'm trying to understand what was that? Was that the spirits? Could it be the people in the room? Was it, you know, not sure, not too sure what to think about that combination.
You know, it could be any of those things and a combination of all of them. And it could be you creating the experience for yourself. Um, because so many people, they make fun of that when you create the experience. They say, "Oh, it's just your imagination when you have an experience like that," right? I've used my imagination my whole life, and I can tell the difference between when I have an experience like what you're describing, BJ, and just like imagining that I don't know, when I was a little kid, I used to imagine that I was a, a genie or a witch or whatever, and I could create spells and all of that stuff, right? But then when I have experiences like what you're talking about, um, there's a difference. There's a difference in the feeling of it, and that giddiness that you were talking about. It's such a cool feeling when that happens. It is. It's like you're giddy.
Yeah.
Um, I actually had an experience at Tala, the Trans Allegheny Asylum in West Virginia. We were there. There were about 5 or 6 of us in the room, and we were sitting around in a circle. And we had a K2 meter, and we had a REM pod, and then we had those little light up balls for cats. That if they move, they start lighting up. Um, and it was the very end of the night. We were all kind of exhausted, but we just decided we were going to try one more time to have an experience. We're sitting around in the circle, and I decided to play what I call the energy ball game. Um, and what I do is I cup my hands in the shape of a ball, and I start to imagine energy in the center of my hands. And you can actually feel it. It starts to tingle in your palms, and it gets very warm. And so I kind of grew it to about the size of a softball. And then the person that was sitting next to me, she was brand new to any kind of ghost hunting. And so I tossed it at her. And the look on her face was classic, like what you're talking about, BJ, when you feel that and it's like, What is that? Well, so then she took that energy and I told her to, just grow it into the size that feels right to you and then pass it on. And so we passed it around the circle. And when we got to the end, the person that was sitting on my right, who was going to end up with it, is my sister-in-law, who is a very spiritual. She's a yogi. She's into all that woo-woo stuff. So I knew she was the perfect person for it to end on. And by the time it got to her, it was about the size of a basketball. And she was doing this. And I said, Paige, when you're done, throw it up into the air and leave it so that they have all this positive energy that we've created. And so sure enough, she molds it with her hands and then she throws it up into the air. And I'm telling you, everybody gasped. The K2 meter went off, the EMF meter went off, and the cat balls started going off. It was amazing. And we just started cheering. And that the giddiness, it's the same thing where that giddiness, where you literally feel a difference in the room. Something just happened. And I can't explain it. I have no ideas because my paranormal investigating has not led to any answers. It's only led to more questions. And I like it that way. I get one answer, I get 10 more questions. So, BJ, that was a long-winded way of trying to answer your question to say I have no idea.
But I like it though because when you were talking about it, I got chills all through my arms and like yeah, just it's amazing.
He felt the energy ball.
I
Yeah.
must have something, but yeah, no man, that was crazy.
And, back to quantum mechanics, that's the entanglement theory, that once you have interacted with someone, you are entangled forever. And it's the same with atoms. And no matter the distance, you don't have to be in the same room with someone. Once you're entangled, what affects you affects them. It's just how it works. And it's science. That's not woo woo.
You had mentioned, people saying, well, that's just your imagination. And, all of us who have kind of grown up with the strong dream world and a strong attachment to that dream world and lucid dreaming and visualization, we've all heard that at some point. Oh, that they've got an overactive imagination, as though imagination is this bad thing. But for me, I think imagination is an extremely powerful thing. I think, at least the way I view it, is imagination is necessary for manifestation, and daydreaming, imagining, whatever we want to call it, fantasizing, to me is a way to train your muscles, your mental muscles, to be able to do things like visualization and manifesting and lucid dreaming. And without that, without the capability to imagine, I really am not sure we can go to those other levels, right? I think it's really key to being able to access the mind in that way.
I agree because your perception is your reality. So, Deepak Chopra likes to say that you can't see what you don't believe in. And so, imagination leads you a long way towards believing in things that some people might feel are too fantastical to believe in. Um, and I think that that does open you up to being able to have the experiences. And again, that's pushing us outside of that 0.01% of the visible universe, right? We're now entering into the maybe 0.015%. Maybe we're approaching 0.02%. That's still a whole bunch that we don't experience and we can't see. But I agree, the imagination is important. We have to imagine it. You have to imagine it before you can experience it. Just like anything that was built in this world, the phone that we carry, the computer that we're talking on right now, you had to imagine it before you could build it. And so when people make fun of imagination and they pass things off and experiences off as, oh, it's just your imagination. Are you kidding me? I think that's the coolest thing ever. My niece, when she was about 3 years old, we were going to go somewhere. We were walking out into the garage to get in the car. And all of a sudden she said, Auntie, Auntie, wait, I have to go back inside. And I said, why? She said, I forgot my imagination. And to this day, I hope, I hope she's now 23 years old. I hope she never leaves home without her imagination because that's a powerful manifestation tool. Absolutely. 100%.
Here's to the dreamers and the imaginers.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
I think imagination also helps us. I mean, it helps us not just build stuff, but also learn, right? Like that. There's one thing I wanted to kind of go back to. So I kept thinking about the movie Arrival, and this movie. Oh, it's so great. It's basically I'm not going to give it away. So Amy Adams is a doctor, right? And she's a linguist, and she basically learns another language to be able to do things that other people can't do. And the language of these extraterrestrials, right? And I feel like if we are more open to it, if we there's a powerful message there that, if we can just learn to step outside of what we know, then there's so much more that we can experience, um, regardless of anything that we believed in initially, really. And I think that, and they did that in such a beautiful way. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching for this type of conversation, I think.
Yeah, because we are more powerful than we know for being able to create things like that and to be able to learn things like that and experience things um, in order to make a connection. Because that's really what she was trying to do. Going back to quantum entanglement, there's that entanglement again. She she was trying to make a connection, and in order to do that, first you have to imagine it, then you have to learn it, then you have to do it, right? But all of those pieces are important. You can't have one without the other. And that makes me think to, going back to talking about ghost hunting, speaking of imagination, I like to talk about how I think a lot of times we create the experiences that we have. And I'll relate that to the Stanley Hotel because that's what I know the best. There is a spirit at the Stanley Hotel that we all have probably heard of and we all know and love, named Lucy. Lucy was supposedly a woman who was found living in the basement of the concert hall when the hotel was going through a really bad period of time, and she was supposedly homeless. They found her living down there. They kicked her out. She went into the town of Estes Park and froze to death. And I told that story hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And then I started doing some research, and I could never find Lucy. If a woman actually froze to death in the town of Estes Park, she's probably going to be in the newspaper, right? But let me tell you, Lucy is very real. Even if Lucy wasn't a real woman, but she's real because all of the people who have come to visit her and to talk to her and to have experiences with her have created Lucy. And she's just as real as you and I, just in a different way. And it's, like the South American tulpas, the thought forms. And it's the same with Jackie on the Queen Mary. She was a creation of Disney. When Disney owned the ship, they created Jackie. And then Peter James came along and he had all these really long, involved experiences and conversations that were on TV about Jackie. Jackie wasn't a real girl who died in the pool at the Queen Mary. Jackie's a thought form. Lucy's a thought form. But we created those experiences. And if we created those experiences, could we then be creating those for someone else from another time frame? Because again, now we're going to talk about time isn't linear, right? And so could we be creating these ghostly experiences strictly through our minds? It's possible.
It's like the energetic ball. game that you play, right? Everybody's contributing their energy to create something very real and experienced by others. Now you feel it. Now you're feeling it in not just with your hands, but you can feel it with other aspects of yourself, your consciousness, your energy. And so to me, and we've talked about this before, I firmly believe that even if you didn't have a paranormal space, with enough people going in, contributing their energy into that space, believing it's haunted, believing it has entities, at some point it is going to. And not because they drew in ghosts from 50 miles away, but because that energy was so strong that they were able to create that manifestation of it.
I agree. And it comes strictly from starting with the imagination. Because so many people think that that's a bad thing, that imagination means you're somehow faking it or you're um, pretending. Imagination and pretending, you know, pretending requires some imagination, but pretending has an intentional aspect of knowing that it's fake, where imagination is imagining what could be, imagining from unlimited possibilities. So, yeah, you need imagination to pretend, but people put down imagination like that's all it is, and that's not true.
Yeah. It makes me kind of think about like Bigfoot or any of the other cryptids. Like so many people believed in it that maybe now we've actually created those in a way. I don't know, it's just a thought.
That's absolutely positive. I mean, I'm not positive that's possible, is the word I meant to use.
I knew what you meant.
And sometimes the reason like that you can't find the Bigfoot in the woods is because they're popping in and out of wormholes. And are we creating those wormholes that are allowing these beings to come through with our imagination? So you're absolutely right, John.
We are the portals.
We are. Each and every one of us
Yeah.
is the portal. And we're the energy coming through the portal as well. Just for extra mind blowingness.
Right. I'm going to switch a little line from a movie that I like, The Craft, where she's like, "We are the weirdos, mister. Well, we are the portals, mister and missus."
There you go.
Collective energy. This is how you get covens.
Exactly. Well, and I think if we all realized that and just accepted it, that we are all the portals, um, I think we could all make pretty amazing difference in the world if you realize that how powerful that truly is.
Yeah, and there's just so many different ways I think that I was looking up for this episode just to connect that way, like with our imagination, imagining that all of these entities, all these interdimensional beings, all of these things are real. How do we connect to them? We do it together, or through different things like meditation, trance, dreams, plant medicines, all of these different things, and like Ashley was saying, covens, like yeah, I mean, a collective mind can do some amazing things, right? And sometimes, yeah, sometimes it does take that for maybe you to connect with that, with your imagination in that way, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and we're all really just computers, right? Um, just like the most basic of computer programming. Ones means you're on, and zeros means that you're off. So when you do meditation, you're increasing the length of your zeros and you're decreasing the length of your ones. So you're turning off your mind. And in those zeros, think of what a zero is shaped like. Zero is infinity, right? Because it's literally, it has no beginning, it has no end. A one has a beginning and an end. You start up here, you draw it down, it's an end. So we want to increase our zeros. We want to increase the infinite possibilities that we can experience by doing things like meditation. We have to shut off what they call the monkey mind. Um, and it's funny because so many people say, I would love to meditate, but I just can't shut it down. I just can't do it. Well, we get really caught up in that in order to meditate, you have to do it for at least 20 minutes or at least 2 hours or, for a really long time for it to be effective. Okay, so let me put this in perspective. When you meditate and you're in your zeros, using that same analogy, right? You're in your zeros, you are actually connecting with the infinite. When it comes to the infinite, what's the difference between 2 minutes and 2 hours? So if you can meditate for 2 minutes, that's sufficient. That's enough. You just have to intentionally enter that period of zero. But you don't have to do it for 20 minutes. You don't have to sit there for hours, like you see on TV where they're sitting cross-legged and they're literally reciting a mantra for all day long. You don't have to do that. Just 2 minutes is sufficient. That's just my thoughts.
While I do think it's important to be able to access the zeros, I also think it is important to remember the ones because I do feel like people get so caught up in the transcendence and the awakening and the beyond that they almost forget that we do have our meat suits for a reason as well. And so finding that balance, right? The balance to be present in the meat suit and the moment and the world around us, while also, like you said, looking through the picture and being part of that zero. So I think finding that balance to be 0 and 1 all at once would be, for me, the goal. Now, I know a lot of people want to transcend to be only in the zero. However, I think we'll get there soon enough. At some point, you're going to expire your meat suit and you'll be all zero, unless you jump back into a one experience. But yeah, I just, as much as I love understanding what the other dimensions are, the 4D, the 5D, the 6D, any of the Ds, I also know that there might be a danger in ignoring that we also still have the 3D for a reason. So I don't know, it's finding that exquisite balance.
I agree. It's called spiritual bypass. Where you literally you're trying to bypass the things that are happening to you in this world by having your spiritual experiences. But like you said, we come here for a reason. We chose to incarnate in our bodies. We came here to have experiences. And by bypassing those experiences, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And so it is important to have that balance. And it's important that by accessing those zeros, part of the intention is to make your ones more enjoyable.
So, like your soul contract, right? You're trying to number one, grow your soul as much as you can, if you know, and then on the on the way, like trying to understand why you're doing this, right? So it's both. But
100%. Exactly right on the nose. I love learning about soul contracts, um, and learning that we keep coming back with the same people to have different experiences with them, with their souls. Sometimes I'm the daughter and my mom is the mom, and the next time she's my cousin and but we're still incarnating in the same soul pods. But we're coming back with these contracts to have the experiences. And so they're going to hit us over the head until we have them because that's what we're here for.
I have this weird visualization. As you mentioned, no, anytime people bring up like the soul tribes and the soul family, I think about what if we're really just all little finger extensions of the same thing? And so the soul, and of course in my head, I see like this wiggly monster thing. But like, what if the souls that we remember, right? The ones that feel familiar are really just fingers that we already were. So the time being like a linear, non-linear, folded weird thing. Maybe the reason it feels like is family members because that was me. And that was my life but now I'm me in a different version, but we're all the same fingers. I don't know. It's so weird. But in my head, I visualize like these little kid toys where they have like the little dangly things all around it. We're the dangly things.
And we're just dangling there.
We're all attached to the same thing. We're just kind of dangling, enjoying the experience, sensing
And we
the world
are.
around us.
And we are. We literally are all attached to the same thing. And that is what some people call God and other people call heaven and other people call spirit and others call the universe. We're all attached to it.
I
So
call it the
yeah,
soul octopus.
the
The
soul.
soul octopus. There you
I
go.
think I'm going to switch to that. The universe has kind of run its course, so I'm going to
It's a
call it the
soul
soul
octopus.
octopus.
Or if you like alliteration, the soul centipede. Whatever works.
Well, when you
All the
were
legs.
describing it, I was actually seeing like a jellyfish.
Yeah, there you
You know,
go.
those little dangly legs.
Just all little, well, like with insects, yes, I guess I'm comparing the universe to insects, but insects use all of their appendages to sense everything about around it. That's how they absorb the information of the world around it. So to me, that's kind of like the soul experience is where all these little fingers feeding it back, like, oh, well, if you go this route, this is how it is. And if you go that route, this is how it is. So I don't know.
True. And it is very important that we all use all of what we're given to experience our reality, just like the insects you're talking about. Because if we just rely on our five senses, we miss a whole bunch.
That was one thing about the NDEs that I was looking into is that when people do come back to their bodies, like they're when they're in the afterlife, they're their true self, they're their full potential, right? And then they come back and they have to squeeze back into the meat suit. And a lot of
Because they
people talk about that.
expanded.
Yeah, exactly. And so when they have to get back in there, it's almost like painful, right? Because
Mhm.
you're going back into this micro version of what you're going to be. And that was, I don't know, pretty profound. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy to think about. When we bust out of this meat suit, like we don't even imagine how like complete we are, I guess, but not complete individually, like you said, collectively.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, and ironically, complete individually, because we are each a spoonful of the ocean, and we are completely the ocean. So each of us is complete. So we are complete as individuals and collectively, which is mind blowing.
I was going to
I
say,
was
this
just gonna
hurts my
say,
brain in the best of
yeah,
ways.
3Haunted
Right.
blowing your mind. Woof.
Pew! One
Well,
Cali
so
at a
Yeah.
what's
time.
new?
Yeah, exactly.
I had it wasn't a near death experience because I didn't almost well, I maybe almost died, but not in this particular dimension. But it was back when I was doing the ghost hunts at the Stanley, and I was living in Loveland, and so I would have to drive down that canyon every single night at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And that canyon, if you've been up and down the canyon that goes from Loveland, that's much crazier than driving the one that goes down 36 into Boulder. Um, and there's this one part that they call the Narrows, where there's the river on one side, and then there's just sheer cliffs on either side. And I was really tired that particular night. And I missed a corner as I was coming down out of it. And to this day, I remember hitting the wall. And I also remember getting back in control and continuing down the mountain. Now, I obviously chose at that instant, that's where you get into, alternate dimensions. And I obviously chose the dimension where I didn't die. But the weird thing is, I remember hitting the wall. I remember the sound. I remember what it felt like as it started happening. I don't like it was, I didn't remember dying or anything like that, but I remembered hitting the wall. It was such a crazy experience, knowing that, you know, somewhere you guys never get to have this conversation with me because all those years ago I hit the wall driving home from the Stanley.
Well, I'm very glad we're in the version where you did not hit the wall.
Right?
We're rather
Thank you.
fond of you.
Oh, thank you. It was a wild experience.
So, oh man, I don't know. Can you run into yourself? Like, version of yourself? Is that a thing? Because if you hit the wall and you passed on, is there a version of yourself that's a spirit that you can talk to?
Oh
Or,
gosh.
Well, I know that you can talk to your higher self, right? And so is
Mhm.
that because if I hit the wall and I died, then I connected to the universe, or the soul octopus, as we're calling it now.
I love it.
And so is that my higher self? Am I talking to myself? But I do know that if you run into your doppelganger, you're supposed to die. So I don't know if we want to do that either.
No.
But I don't know if that's what a doppelganger is.
Now,
So
wouldn't that be interesting if your higher self is all iterations and timelines of you that have passed, even from this timeline? So, not past lives alone and future lives that have passed alone, but just also this life of many instances where your timeline has diverged in different ways.
and it's also the part of yourself that hasn't incarnated yet also. So it's not just the part of yourself that's passed on, it's the part of yourself that hasn't even been here yet to pass on.
Do you think that when we discuss intuitive knowing and that intuition that everybody has, but not everybody accesses, is connected to the higher self, that are those iterations or the soul octopus or a combination of both?
I think it's the same thing. I think once we expand out of our meat suit, and like BJ was talking about how hard it is to push yourself back in because you've expanded. It's because you've expanded and you are now literally connected and one with everything. So we're all of it. We're who we are now. We're who we are after we've passed on. We're who we are before we were born. And we're everyone else who hasn't passed on and who hasn't been born. And we're all one.
Maybe that's why babies cry when they're born, because they're like, how painful that was to go from a higher being stuffed into this meat suit.
Right? And I mean, when you're a baby, you're literally stuffed into somebody else's meat suit in your own meat suit, and then you got to come through a really tiny tunnel. That does
Stuffed
have to
out.
be,
It's,
yeah,
it's like a Russian nesting doll. It's stuffed upon stuffed upon stuffed.
yeah, yep. You're right. That's probably why they cry.
It's all very traumatizing.
Yeah, every time we talk about like getting back in the meat suit, I keep thinking of Men in Black with Edgar, and it's like, oh, that's the vision that I keep seeing, and like, oh man,
I just keep
ugh,
thinking of stuffed sausage casings. Like when you,
ew,
you
that too.
stuff a
Mhm.
sausage
Mine
casing.
was less gross.
That's I'm gonna be honest, every time we keep saying that with the near death, like being put back in, that's all I visualize.
You know those mattresses that you can buy that are like the memory foam mattresses,
Yes,
and they
yes.
come rolled up into this little
Oh,
tight little
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then you open it up and they expand and they become huge. I
we could
mean,
never
Mm-hmm.
get it back in.
we're all just memory foam mattresses, really.
That one's less gross. I like that.
Yeah, we're going with the. I have the like. I'll be honest. Most of my visualizations are visceral, so
Well, it's your horror movie thing.
it
Yeah,
probably is.
Yeah,
definitely has something to do with it, I think.
yeah.
that was one thing that's really cool about the meat suit thing is that when there is an ND, when you have a near death experience and you come back, like you said, you're almost like a different person, right? So you are, and a lot of the people that are on they have been interviewed, they've gotten divorced, they've had to end their relationships and things just because um their relationship doesn't serve them anymore for whatever
Doesn't
reason.
fit. It doesn't fit with them anymore.
Exactly, which is crazy to think about. Somebody you've been maybe happily married with for 20 years or something, and then you come back and you're like, this isn't what's supposed to happen. And that, I think that's pretty crazy.
It's the expansion. You know, this isn't also me dying, but in 2013, I actually walked across Spain on the Camino de Santiago. And talk about expansion. It changed everything about me. And my mind expanded and my soul expanded. The only thing that didn't expand because I walked 500 miles is my butt. But when I got back from there, it's similar to what you're talking about because when I got back from Spain, I was like, why did everybody change so much while I was gone? And it was like, they didn't change. I changed. It was me. And I think that's the same thing, when you have a near death experience, which would be ultimately more powerful than walking across Spain. Um, but that's how I would relate to it.
Although that's absolutely amazing. Long time ago, I read The Pilgrimage by Paulo Coelho.
Hmm.
And so when you started sharing your journey that you were doing the Camino Santiago, I was just like, I've read about this.
Hmm. Yep. I actually read his book right before I walked, and then he walked a portion of it while I was there. I didn't meet him or see him, but he was literally on the Camino at the same time I was, which was very cool because
That is
The
magical.
Alchemist is my all time favorite book.
I love Paulo. Like, I have, I
Oh,
think,
he's
all of the
amazing.
books I can get of his, but
Yeah.
absolutely love his works. But you're amazing too. So
Oh.
I'm excited for your book coming out. Could you tell us more about it?
Oh yeah, I decided to go ahead and write a book about my journey across Spain. It's taking me 12 years to write this book. I have had writer's block like you wouldn't believe. I have fought with myself. And finally, when I went to Italy for, for the month, I finished the book after 12 years. And it's now just waiting for my friend who she actually wrote the book about the Myrtles plantation that maybe you've heard of. Her name is Frances Kermeen, and she actually owned the Myrtles plantation at one point. She's actually writing the foreword for me, and once the foreword is done, then the book is going to be published. um, but it's all about, a lot of people have written about the Camino and they write about their experiences, but I tell a few of my experiences, but the book is really about the lessons that it taught me. And to this day, I still am extremely grateful for all of the lessons of the Camino that on a regular basis come back to me. So I can't wait for it to come out, and I can't wait for to see what everybody thinks. So,
What I love that you did is that you posted the chapter titles and
mhm,
you invited people to let you know which chapter title spoke intuitively to them, and then you sent them the chapter.
mhm,
And that's a pretty neat way to connect, right? Because to see which chapter titles spoke to people and how it wasn't just one, right? It wasn't like everybody said the same one. Everybody truly did have a connection to different parts of the book, which I'm sure as writers and authors, you see that firsthand. People connect in different ways to different portions of writings. And we do that ourselves, right? As we read books, even if you read it, you could read it 5 times, and each time you read it, something different is going to speak to you. So it was
mhm.
fun to see that play out with all of your different, future readers.
That was really helpful for me too. And then to hear, behind the scenes that everybody who picked a chapter, even if they didn't really know what it was going to be about, all they had was a title. They didn't know what was in the chapter. So many people said, "Oh my gosh, that was exactly the lesson I needed. It's exactly what I needed to hear." See, that's going to make me emotional, um, because it wasn't just my Camino. Um, it was for everyone. And so I want to share these lessons so that people, they can see themselves in it, even if they never step foot in Spain. You don't have to walk 500 miles across a foreign country to walk your own Camino. And that's what I want this book to resonate with. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
That was like the perfect line. It like just captures the essence of what you're doing. You don't
Mhm.
have to walk 500 miles of this Camino in Spain to walk your own Camino.
Everybody walks their own.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
For you and your writing journey, because I know you said it's been 12 years in the making, is there a sense of continuing the writing Camino, if you will? Or was that was your, this is my story, this is what I was wanting to tell. Now I'm open to the what next.
Yeah, see, I struggle with the what next. That actually is difficult, because I remember the what next when I finished the Camino. That had identified me. I trained for an entire year to be able to go, and then I walked for 2 months, and so it defined me for all this whole period of time. And then when I arrived in Santiago and I had done it, I was really excited. But then I was like, what next? How do I beat this? Right. And so now that I've finished the book, I'm also now saying, what next? But what I have to remember is I have always lived my life not worrying about what's next. I just let it come and I say yes when it does. And I've always done that. That's how I ended up doing the ghost hunts at the Stanley Hotel. Um, I just said yes to some weird, crazy idea that I had. And the Camino was certainly the biggest crazy idea that I've had so far. But I believe there is something next. I don't know what it is. Um, I don't know if it'll, uh, involve writing another book. I have no idea. I know I'm a good writer though, and I do enjoy writing. Um, I just don't know if I want to struggle for 12 years again. But this was it was an intensely personal journey. And so to write about it, knowing there's some chapters that some people are not going to like and are going to be uncomfortable with and are going to learn some things about me that they didn't know. So, there was a lot involved in that, but it was a labor of love. And to finish it in Italy, there's just something about that. I had to finish it there.
Well, that vulnerability that you're willing to put into your book and share, that energy ball that you're placing out there for the world to receive, I feel like is why people are so connected to the chapters that you have sent out. It is real, it is raw, and it is carrying an energy that is genuine to you. And so I'm excited for it to come out. Now, do we know the title?
We do. It's called Participate in Your Own Rescue Life Lessons from the Camino de Santiago. Now, I have to tell you about where the title came from because the title has nothing to do with Spain. Um, when I was 23, 24 years old, I went on a rafting trip in Colorado. And, as we're getting ready to get in our rafting guide is giving us some safety tips. And his final safety tip is if you fall out of the raft, participate in your own rescue. So, in other words, don't expect people to just come rescue you. Make sure you keep your head above water. Make sure you do whatever you can. If you can swim towards the boat, whatever you can do, participate in your own rescue. I was 22 or 23 years old. I was, all I cared about is the next bar I was going to go to the next weekend. You know what I mean? I wasn't into having a spiritual experience, but for some reason, that particular line that raft guide said has literally stuck with me for my entire life. And the Camino for me was me participating in my own rescue based on a bunch of stuff that happened before I walked it. So,
I love that so much. It is those life lessons, right, that come what feel like seemingly out of nowhere, but they're really perfectly placed in our path.
always.
So once your book releases, where are people going to be able to find it?
I'm going to publish on Amazon, so it'll be very easy to find it. Um, and once I've published it, I'm going to obviously order some copies. So if people are interested, they can find me on Facebook if they want to, send me a message, and I'll send them an autographed copy if they want, or they can just order it directly from Amazon. So
So
it feels
exciting.
so weird to talk about that that it's done. It's so bizarre.
We're going to have to celebrate.
Yeah, I think a celebration is necessary. I do.
Absolutely. I mean, I've known you for so long. I mean, even knowing when you first started your journey towards walking, I
Hmm.
remember hearing about it and seeing about it. And so I'm proud of you for doing it. And I'm proud of you for getting that book going too. So
Thank you.
you're
Thank
very
you.
Yay.
welcome.
So exciting. Yeah, please let us know when it publishes. We will absolutely share it everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I will for sure. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, as soon as Francis gets the forward done, then I have one more thing I have to do, which is I need to read it to myself out loud, because you know how when you read it in your head, it sounds one way, but when you read it out loud, you can hear the parts that are awkward. So then I have to read it out loud, and then once that's done, then I'm hitting the publish button, and it's uh, it's a done deal.
This has been so phenomenal. Do we have any final thoughts or questions for Callie? I could keep going and going and going, but
Or are your minds all just too blown?
my mind's wired now. Thank you, Callie.
No, it's great. I'm happy. I'm glad I got to meet you finally and, learn about your story. And, I'm excited to read this. That's one thing. And you say that it's done. This is just the beginning of it because the people that you're going to touch with this, with your words, if it's doing that with just a chapter, imagine what the whole book's going to do. Right. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Plot twist. I learned the same thing when I arrived in Santiago. I thought it was the end, and it was like, oh, wait, this just turned out to be the beginning. And ironically, I went ghost hunting at a place here in Colorado um, this past weekend on Halloween, the 4 Mile Park in Denver. And after I was done, I was leaving, and the lady who runs the place, she was talking about how they have people who come talk about experiences they've had and share their passions. And I said, well, I actually have a presentation that I do on the Camino, and I would love to come do that. And she said, oh, we would love to have you. And I just got chills up and down my body because just from ghost hunting, now I'm gonna go give a presentation on the Camino. So there you go.
That reminds me of a phrase that you would say, the Camino provides. And there you go.
Camino always provides. There is
Always
no other
provides. Yep.
way.
Yep.
Callie, I'm so glad to have you on. It was way too long. Let it not take that long again. Once your book is published, please, we'd love to have you back on so we could talk more about the book and not give away too many spoilers.
That sounds awesome.
That would be lovely. All right. BJ Segura, do you want to bring us home?
Yes, absolutely, Ashley. So again, thank you, Callie, for coming on. It's so great to meet you. I can't wait to get into your book and just to learn some more things, right? Because we're always learning from each other, and I think you have a lot to offer. And so, yeah, from all of us here, thank you for tuning in to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your hosts. I'm BJ Segura.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And I'm John Thomas.
If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You do not want to miss our amazing guests like Callie.
No, you don't. And also, don't forget to check out 300podcast.com, where you can find all of our past and current season episodes, as well as guest information and all kinds of awesome merch.
Until next time.